Vextar decided he needed to see things for himself. After 6 months of getting nowhere with reports and datapads, he packed his bags and left his office behind. If he couldn't count humans from his desk, maybe he could count them by visiting their colonies in person. His first stop was Kepler 442b, where Nari ran what Tai-Min had called a small agricultural settlement. The planet looked beautiful from orbit. Green fields covered most of the land, with rivers running like silver ribbons between them. Cities dotted the continents, connected by roads and railways that formed neat patterns across the landscape. 50 million people, Vextar muttered as his shuttle landed at the main spaceport. On a small agricultural settlement, Nari met him at the landing pad. She was a middle-aged woman with dirt under her fingernails and a sun hat that had seen better days. She looked exactly like what Vextar expected a farmer to look like, except for the fact that she was running a colony the size of some minor star nations. "Welcome to New Eden," she said with a warm smile. "I hope you had a good flight. Would you like some tea? We grow our own here." Vextar followed her to a small building near the spaceport. Through the windows, he could see endless fields of crops he didn't recognize. Machines moved between the rows, tending to plants with mechanical precision. "This is quite impressive," he said as Nari poured tea from a ceramic pot. "How long have you been working on this planet?" "Oh, about 30 years now," Nari replied. "When we first got here, it was mostly desert. Took us 5 years just to figure out how to make anything grow. But once we got the soil chemistry right, everything just took off." 30 years? Vextar pulled out his datapad. "According to our records, humans have only had interstellar travel for 25 years. Nari laughed. "Records can be funny things. We got here on the generation ship Harmony. Took us 80 years to make the trip from Earth. Launched way back when humans were still figuring out how to build rockets that could reach their own moon properly." Vextar nearly choked on his tea. 80 years? Your people have been traveling between stars for over a century? "Well, not traveling fast," Nari said with a shrug. "Those old generation ships were slow as anything. But they got us here eventually. And while we were traveling, people back home kept building better ships. By the time we arrived, there were already 3 other human colonies in nearby systems." 3 other colonies? Vextar checked his records again. "Which systems?" "Oh, let's see. There's Gliese 6667c, Wolf 1061, and Proxima Centauri. The Proxima folks actually got there before us, even though they launched later. They had better engines." Vextar made notes frantically. None of those colonies were in his official records. "How many people are in those other colonies?" "Proxima's got maybe 20 million by now. Gliese is smaller, maybe 8 million. Wolf is the big one, though. They've got over 100 million people and they're terraforming 3 planets at once." 100 million people terraforming 3 planets at once? Vextar's voice cracked slightly. "Humans are good at multitasking," Nari said matter-of-factly. "Plus they've got Jin Ho running their terraforming program. That man could make a sun grow grass if you gave him enough time." 2 days later, Vextar found himself standing on Wolf 1061c, watching Jin Ho work his magic. The planet should have been uninhabitable. The atmosphere was too thin, the soil was poisonous, and the temperature swings were extreme enough to kill most known life forms. Instead, Vextar was looking at a world in the middle of an incredible transformation. Massive machines crawled across the landscape, processing the poisonous soil and turning it into rich farmland. Atmospheric processors hummed in the distance, slowly thickening the air and adjusting its chemistry. Dome cities housed millions of people while they waited for the planet to become fully livable. "It's really not that complicated," Jin Ho explained as they toured one of the terraforming sites. He was a young man with calloused hands and the kind of confident smile that came from solving impossible problems every day. "You just have to think about it step by step." "Step by step?" Vextar watched a machine the size of a city block, grinding up a mountain and spitting out processed soil. "This is one of the most advanced terraforming operations I've ever seen. The Galactic Council's best experts said this planet couldn't be made habitable for at least 500 years. "Yeah, we heard about that," Jin Ho said. "But their timeline assumed we'd use standard galactic terraforming techniques." "Humans don't really do standard." "What do you mean?" Jin Ho pointed to one of the atmospheric processors. "See that machine? Standard galactic design would make it process air slowly and safely, taking maybe 200 years to get the atmosphere right. We modified it to work 10 times faster. Isn't that dangerous?" "Sure, if you do it wrong. But we've got safety systems, and backup systems for the backup systems. Plus, we're not trying to make the planet perfect. We just need it good enough for humans to live on. Humans can adapt to almost anything. As if to prove his point, Jin-Ho took off his breathing mask and took a deep breath of the thin air. See? Already breathable, at least for humans. We'll have this planet fully terraformed in another 15 years. Vextar made more notes. Humans were terraforming planets in decades instead of centuries. They were living in conditions that would kill most species. And they were doing it with modified technology and a casual attitude toward safety that would terrify galactic engineers. "How many planets are you terraforming?" he asked. "In this system? Just 3. But there are terraforming projects in maybe 50 other systems by now. Probably more. Humans really like turning dead rocks into gardens. 50 systems?" Vextar's datapad was running out of memory. "How is that possible? Where do you get the resources? The people? The expertise?" "Oh, that's easy," Jin-Ho said. "Every human colony teaches terraforming as a basic skill. It's like learning to cook or fix a broken machine. Useful stuff to know. And every colony shares what they learn with every other colony. Someone figures out a new technique on one world and within a year everyone's using it. But the resources..." Jin-Ho gestured at the landscape around them. "Resources are everywhere if you know how to use them. This planet looked worthless to the galactic survey teams because they couldn't see the potential, but humans are good at seeing potential in worthless things." That evening, Vextar had dinner with Subin, the captain of a generation ship called the Long Road Home. Her ship was over 200 years old, had traveled between 12 different star systems, and was currently carrying 15,000 people to establish a new colony around a red dwarf star. 200 years? Vextar asked as they ate in the ship's mess hall. The food was surprisingly good, grown in hydroponic gardens throughout the massive vessel. "Give or take," Subin said. She was an elderly woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen more of the galaxy than most people could imagine. "The ship's been in my family for 6 generations. My great-great-grandmother was part of the original crew when they launched from Earth. But humans have only been building generation ships for about 300 years. Yeah," Subin interrupted gently. "Long before we had proper FTL drives or even good communication systems. Humans have been spreading across the galaxy the slow way for a very long time." She pulled out a worn book and opened it to show Vextar hand-drawn star charts. "These are my great-great-grandmother's notes from the early voyages. Look at all the systems she marked as good for colonies or needs terraforming or worth investigating later." Vextar looked at the charts. There were hundreds of star systems marked with careful notations in different handwriting. Different generations of Subin's family had added notes, corrections, and updates over 2 centuries of travel. "Your family has been exploring the galaxy for 200 years? My family and thousands of others," Subin confirmed. "Generation ships don't just carry colonists. They're exploration vessels, research labs, and seed ships all rolled into one. Every system we visit, we learn something new. Every planet we study, we figure out how to make it livable. Every discovery we make, we share with other ships and colonies." "How many generation ships are there?" Subin thought for a moment. "Active ships? Maybe 800, maybe 1,000. Hard to keep track since they're all following different routes and most of them don't check in regularly." 1,000 generation ships? Vextar's stylus slipped from his grip. "Each carrying thousands of people? Plus their children and grandchildren born during the voyages," Subin added. "Some of the oldest ships have 4th or 5th generation crews by now. People who've never lived on a planet only in space." That night, alone in his guest quarters, Vextar stared at his notes. Humans had been spreading across the galaxy for centuries, not decades. They were terraforming planets faster than anyone thought possible. They were living in conditions that would kill other species. They were sharing knowledge and resources across impossible distances, and none of it was in any official records. Tomorrow, he would visit Dongwu's colony on Kepler 186f, a world that had been officially declared uninhabitable and worthless by 3 separate galactic survey teams. Vextar had a feeling that tomorrow was going to be another very long day. Vextar stared at the data pad in his 4 hands, all of them shaking slightly. 3 years. 3 entire standard years he had been trying to count humans for the galactic census. What should have been a simple job had become his worst nightmare. The Galactic Council required every species to report their exact population numbers every 5 years. It was basic law, Every species managed to do this without problems. The Zephyrians counted their hive minds in days. The crystal beings from Arcturus finished their count in hours. Even the scattered nomad fleets of the wanderer species completed their census in weeks. But humans? Humans were impossible. Vextar pressed a button on his desk. The door to his office slid open and Taman walked in. The human liaison officer looked calm and friendly, just like always. His black hair was neat, his uniform clean, and he carried a small smile that never seemed to go away. "You wanted to see me, Director?" Taman asked in perfect galactic standard. "Yes," Vextar said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We need to talk about the census numbers again." Taman sat down in the chair across from Vextar's desk. "Of course. How can I help?" Vextar looked at his data pad again. "When we started the census 3 years ago, you told us there were 12.7 billion humans on Earth, correct?" "That's right." Taman nodded. "Then we sent teams to Mars. You said there might be a few mining colonies there, maybe 100,000 people at most. I believe that's what I estimated, yes." Vextar's eye stalks twitched with frustration. "We found 2.3 billion humans on Mars, Taman. 2.3 billion. That's not a few mining colonies. That's more people than some entire star systems have." Taman looked genuinely surprised. "Really, that many? Wow, the Mars colonies must have grown faster than I thought. Time flies, you know?" "Time flies?" Vextar repeated. "How does a population grow from 100,000 to over 2 billion without anyone noticing?" "Well, humans do like to have families," Taman said with a shrug. "And Mars has really good soil now. Good soil means good food, and good food means happy families." Vextar wanted to throw his datapad across the room. Instead, he took a deep breath and continued. "Fine, Mars was a surprise. But then we moved on to the Jupiter system. You said there were maybe 50,000 people working on the gas mining platforms. That sounds about right. We found 800 million humans, Taman. 800 million. Living in floating cities in Jupiter's atmosphere. Cities that our orbital scans somehow missed completely." Taman scratched his head. "Oh, those cities. Yes, I forgot about those. They're new. Well, not new, but newer than the mining platforms. The engineers figured out how to build them about, maybe 20 years ago. They're really quite nice. Great views of the storms. 20 years? Vextar's voice was getting higher. "How do you build cities for 800 million people in 20 years? Humans are pretty good at building things quickly when they need to," Taman explained. "Especially when there's a deadline. We had a housing shortage on Earth and Mars, so some people thought, why not try Jupiter? Turns out it worked really well." Vextar looked at his notes again, page after page of impossible numbers. The asteroid belt surveys had found mining stations with millions of workers. The outer planet moons had research bases that turned out to be full cities. Every single estimate Taman had given them was wrong by factors of thousands or even millions. "Let's try a different approach," Vextar said. "How many human colonies exist in this star system?" Taman thought for a moment. "In the Sol system? Oh, that's easy. There's Earth, Mars, the Jupiter cities, the asteroid stations, the research bases on Europa and Titan, the solar collectors near Mercury, the deep space shipyards beyond Pluto. I'd say maybe 30 or 40 major settlements." 30 or 40? Vextar checked his census data. His teams had already found over 300 separate human settlements in the Sol system alone. And they kept finding more every day. "Give or take," Tamin added helpfully. "What about outside the Sol system?" Vextar asked. "How many human colonies are there in other star systems?" "Oh, not that many," Tamin said quickly. "We're still pretty new to interstellar travel. Maybe a dozen systems? Maybe 20 at most?" Vextar pulled up another file on his datapad. The list of confirmed human colonies filled the entire screen and kept scrolling. "According to our preliminary surveys, we've found human settlements in over 400 star systems." 400? Taman looked genuinely shocked. "That seems like a lot. Are you sure those are all human settlements? Maybe some of them are just research stations or trading posts. Research stations with millions of residents? Trading posts with their own farms and factories and schools?" Vextar leaned forward. "Taman, we found a human colony on Kepler 442b that has over 50 million people." 50 million? The administrator there, a woman named Nari, told us it was just a small agricultural settlement. "Nari's very modest," Taman said with a smile. "She doesn't like to brag. But yes, they've done wonderful things with that planet. Used to be mostly desert, but they've got it blooming now. Literally. The whole planet smells like flowers in spring. That's not the point. Vextar slammed one of his hands on the desk. The point is that none of these colonies appear in any of your official reports. None of them are registered with the Galactic Council. According to your government's paperwork, humans have exactly 12 settlements outside the Sol system. Paperwork, Taman said with a slight frown. Nobody likes paperwork. It's possible some of the colony administrators forgot to file the proper forms. You know how it is with bureaucracy. Vextar stared at Taman. The human looked completely sincere. Either he was the best liar in the galaxy, or he genuinely didn't understand why this was a problem. Taman, Vextar said slowly. Do you understand what a census is? Of course. You count everyone so the government knows how many people there are. And do you understand why this is important? Sure, for planning purposes. Infrastructure, food distribution, representation in the council. Basic stuff. Then why? Vextar said, his voice barely controlled. Why is it impossible to get accurate numbers from your species? Taman was quiet for a moment. Then he said, maybe the question is wrong. Wrong? How can asking how many humans are there be wrong? Well, Taman said thoughtfully, you're asking for a number. But numbers change. Every day more humans are born. Every day new colonies are started. Every day people move from one place to another. By the time you finish counting, the number is already different. Vextar felt a headache starting behind his eye stalks. Every species deals with population changes. That's why we do the census every 5 years instead of every year. It gives a snapshot. But humans don't really do snapshots, Taman explained. We're always moving, always growing, always trying new things. My cousin just started a mining operation in the Tau Ceti system last month. My sister is part of a terraforming project in Wolfie. 359. My neighbor is building a research station around a brown dwarf that doesn't even have a name yet. Your neighbor is building a research station around an unnamed brown dwarf? Vextar repeated weakly. Yeah, he's really excited about it. Thinks he can figure out how to harvest energy from the magnetic field. Might work, might not, but that's how humans are. We try things. Vextar looked at his datapad again. The list of human settlements just kept growing. Every day, his census teams reported new discoveries. Colonies in systems marked as unexplored. Research stations around dead stars. Mining operations in asteroid fields that other species had declared worthless. Taman, he said finally, I need you to be completely honest with me. How many humans are there, really? Taman smiled that same friendly smile. I honestly don't know, Director. Nobody knows. That's kind of the point. What do you mean, that's the point? Well, Taman stood up from his chair. Humans like to be prepared for anything. The best way to be prepared is to be everywhere. And the best way to be everywhere is to never stop moving, never stop growing, never stop trying new things. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. You want to count us, Director, but we're countless. Every time you think you've found us all, you'll find more. Every time you think you understand how many we are, we'll surprise you. The door slid shut behind him, leaving Vextar alone with his impossible census data. 3 years of work, and he was further from an answer than when he started. Somewhere out there, humans were spreading across the galaxy like seeds on the wind, building homes in impossible places, turning dead worlds into gardens, finding ways to survive where no one else even tried. And apparently, none of them bothered to fill out the proper paperwork. Vextar put his head in his hands and wondered if early retirement was an option. Kepler 186f was supposed to be a dead world. Vextar had read the survey reports during his flight there. Too cold, soil too acidic, atmosphere too thin. The official galactic survey had marked it as uninhabitable and economically worthless, and recommended it be left alone. Instead, as his shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Vextar looked down at green forests, flowing rivers, and cities that sparkled in the red sunlight of the system's dwarf star. Welcome to Hope Valley, said Dongwu, the colony's agricultural specialist. He was a stocky man with soil-stained clothes and the kind of satisfied smile that came from turning the impossible into reality. Sorry about the weather. We're having a bit of a heat wave. Vextar checked his environmental suit's readings. The temperature outside was barely above freezing. But humans were walking around in light jackets like it was a pleasant spring day. "How long have you been here?" Vextar asked as they walked through the colony's main settlement. The buildings were solid and well built, clearly designed for permanent habitation rather than temporary shelters. "Oh, about 40 years now," Dongwu replied. "Took us the first 10 years just to figure out how to keep from freezing to death. The next 10 to make the soil usable. The last 20 have been the fun part." "Fun part?" Dongwu gestured at the landscape around them. Fields of crops stretched to the horizon, tended by both humans and machines, turning a dead rock into a garden. "There's nothing quite like it." Vextar pulled out his datapad, which was getting fuller by the day. "According to the Galactic Survey, this planet was uninhabitable. How did you even know to try colonizing it?" "The survey was wrong," Dongwu said simply. "Not completely wrong, mind you. The planet was pretty nasty when we got here, but survey teams look for worlds that are already good for life. Humans look for worlds that could be good for life." They stopped at an overlook where Vexitar could see the full scope of the colony. Millions of people lived and worked across the transformed landscape. Factories processed local materials. Schools taught children who had been born on this formerly dead world. Gardens grew food that fed populations across 3 star systems. "This feeds 3 star systems?" Vextar asked. "Well, we had to find something to do with all the extra food," Dongwu explained. "Once we got the soil working properly, we discovered this planet is incredibly fertile. We can grow enough food for 50 million people, but we only have 8 million living here. So we export the rest." "To which systems?" "Let's see. Ross 128, Trappist 1, and LHS 1140. All human colonies that are still getting their own agriculture established. Should be self-sufficient in another decade or 2, but until then we keep them fed." Vextar made notes, but his stylus was trembling slightly. Every answer led to more questions. Every colony he visited revealed the existence of more colonies he hadn't known about. "Dongwu," he said carefully, "when did humans first arrive in this system?" "The first scout ship got here maybe 60 years ago. Took them 5 years to do a proper survey and decide the planet was worth trying to terraform. Then it took 15 years to organize the colony mission and make the trip." 60 years ago? Vextar checked his galactic chronometer. "But humans didn't have interstellar travel capability 60 years ago. According to all records, first human interstellar flight was only 25 years ago." Dongwu laughed. "Records again. I think there might be some confusion about what counts as official interstellar travel." "What do you mean?" "Well, the ship that brought my parents here was launched from a human colony around Proxima Centauri, and that colony was established by people who came from a colony around Wolf 359. And that colony was started by people from a generation ship that launched from Earth maybe, 80 years ago." Vextar felt that familiar headache starting again. "So humans have been traveling between stars for at least 80 years. At least. Probably longer. My grandmother used to tell stories about the old pioneers who left Earth when her grandmother was young. That would make it, well, over a century at minimum." That evening, Vextar met with Hyunwoo, a human historian who had access to what he called the classified archives. They sat in Hyunwoo's study, surrounded by books, data cores, and star charts that looked much older than 25 years. "The thing you have to understand," Hyunwoo said, pouring tea that smelled like flowers Vextar had never encountered before, "is that humans have always been explorers. Even before we had the technology to explore properly. But the official first contact records are accurate as far as they go." Hyunwoo interrupted gently. "Humans did make official first contact with the galactic community 25 years ago. But that doesn't mean we weren't already out here." He opened an old book and showed Vextar photographs of humans in primitive spacesuits standing next to early spacecraft. The images were clearly decades old. These are from the first successful human interstellar mission, launched 93 years ago. Took them 40 years to reach Proxima Centauri, but they made it. 93 years ago, Vextar stared at the photographs. "But your species had barely developed chemical rockets 93 years ago." "Barely, but we had them. And humans have never been good at waiting for things to get easier." Hyunwoo turned the page to show more photographs. Humans building habitats on airless worlds. Humans growing food in improvised greenhouses. Humans raising children in spacecraft that looked like they were held together with determination and spare parts. These people left Earth knowing they would never return. Their children would never see Earth. Maybe their grandchildren would reach another star if they were lucky. And they went anyway. Why? Hyunwoo smiled. Because that's what humans do. We see something new and we want to go there. We see something difficult and we want to try it. We see something impossible and we want to prove it's not really impossible. Over the next few hours, Hyunwoo showed Vextar records that painted a completely different picture of human expansion. Generation ships launching from Earth every few years for over a century. Scout missions sent to nearby star systems using primitive but functional faster-than-light drives. Colonies established, abandoned, re-established, and expanded across dozens of star systems. But why keep it secret? Vextar asked. Why not tell the galactic community about your true expansion? It wasn't exactly secret, Hyunwoo explained. It just wasn't official. Most of these early colonies were small, struggling, barely surviving. They weren't ready for contact with advanced galactic civilization. They needed time to get established, to figure out how to make their worlds livable, to build up their populations and technology. So the first contact 25 years ago was when we felt ready to join the galactic community properly. When we had enough established colonies, enough stable populations, enough technological capability to be useful partners rather than just primitive newcomers asking for help. Vextar looked at the star chart spread across Hyunwoo's desk. Red marks indicated confirmed human settlements. Blue marks showed suspected settlements. Green marks represented systems under investigation for possible colonization. There were thousands of marks. How many human colonies are there really? Vextar asked. I honestly don't know, Hyunwoo admitted. The early colonies were supposed to check in regularly, but communication across interstellar distances was difficult and expensive. Some colonies went silent and we never heard from them again. Others split into multiple settlements. Others discovered they could reach new systems and started their own expansion programs. He pointed to a cluster of green marks. Take this region here. We lost contact with the colony ship Determination about 70 years ago. Last we heard they were investigating systems in this area. But 3 years ago we started getting messages from human settlements in 6 different systems around there. 6 settlements from one colony ship? Either Determination found a really good area and split into multiple colonies, or they ran into other human settlers who got there by a different route, or they found something so interesting they just kept expanding. We won't know until someone makes the trip to investigate. Someone? Hyunwoo smiled. The investigation mission launches next month. Captain Jae-sung is taking his exploration ship to map the entire region and re-establish contact. Should be interesting. Vextar spent the rest of the week with Mi-young, a xenoarchaeologist who specialized in studying ruins on supposedly uninhabited worlds. What she showed him made his headache permanent. This is from Kepler 452b, she said, showing him photographs of clearly human artifacts found in caves. The planet was officially discovered by galactic survey teams 8 years ago. But these tool marks are at least 30 years old. 30 years, at minimum. Could be older. The interesting thing is there's no record of any human mission to Kepler 452b, but someone was definitely there. She showed him more photographs from other worlds, human footprints preserved in mud that had hardened decades ago, the remains of shelter structures built with human construction techniques, tool marks on rock formations that could only have been made by human mining equipment. How many worlds? Vextar asked weakly. Confirmed human presence on worlds not in the official records? 43 so far, but I've only been looking for 2 years and I'm just one archaeologist. Jae-sung's exploration ship, the Far Horizon, was not what Vextar had expected. Instead of the sleek, advanced vessel he imagined a deep space explorer would use, he found himself aboard a ship that looked like it had been built from spare parts and held together with stubborn determination. She's not much to look at, Jae-sung admitted as he gave Vextar a tour of the ship, but she's reliable. Been with me for 15 years and she's never let me down. Jae-sung was a tall man with graying hair and the kind of calm confidence that came from spending years alone in the dark between stars. His ship was cramped but comfortable, filled with star charts, survey equipment, and photographs of distant worlds that no galactic database had ever recorded. 15 years? Vextar asked as they walked through the ship's small common area. How many systems have you explored in 15 years? Oh, maybe 300? Maybe 400. I don't keep exact count. Some systems are worth a quick look. Some need detailed surveys, some are completely empty. It all depends. 400 systems in 15 years? Give or take. Time works differently when you're traveling between stars. Sometimes a survey takes a few days, sometimes a few months. Sometimes you find something so interesting you end up staying for a year. They reached the ship's navigation center, where holographic star charts showed more detail than Vextar had ever seen. Systems were marked with different colors and symbols, creating a three-dimensional map of human exploration that stretched across hundreds of light years. What do all the different colors mean? Vextar asked. Red means confirmed human settlement, Jae-sung explained. Blue means suitable for human colonization but not settled yet. Green means under investigation. Yellow means resource extraction only. Purple means abandoned or failed colonies. Abandoned colonies? Sure, not every colony works out. Sometimes the environment is harder than expected. Sometimes people just don't like the world they're trying to settle. Sometimes they find a better world nearby and decide to move. Humans are practical that way. Vextar studied the map. There were hundreds of red marks, thousands of blue and green marks. This shows human presence in systems that haven't even been officially discovered by galactic survey teams. Official discovery is different from actual discovery, Jae-sung said with a shrug. I've been to plenty of systems that are marked as unexplored in the galactic databases, usually because nobody else thought they were worth investigating. Why do humans investigate systems that other species ignore? Because other species look for systems that are already perfect for their needs. Humans look for systems that could become perfect with enough work. Big difference. Jae-sung pulled up detailed information on one of the red marks. Take this system here. Gliese 163. 3 planets, all of them too hot, too cold, or too toxic for most species. Galactic Survey marked it as no colonization potential and moved on. But there's a human colony there? 2 human colonies. One on the hot planet, using geothermal energy for manufacturing. One on the cold planet, using the ice for water and the low temperatures for specialized agriculture. Both colonies are thriving. And the toxic planet? That's where they're building the research station to study extremophile bacteria. Turns out the toxic environment produces some very interesting biochemical compounds. Could be useful for medicine. Vextar made notes, but his datapad was running out of storage space. How do you coordinate all of this? How do you keep track of which systems need colonies, which colonies need supplies, which research projects are producing useful results? That's not really my job, Jae-sung said. I'm just an explorer. I find interesting places and report back. Other people handle the coordination. Other people? Sure, there's a whole network of coordinators, planners, logistics specialists. They keep track of the big picture while people like me focus on finding new pieces of the puzzle. Can I meet these coordinators? Jae-sung considered this for a moment. I'd have to ask. They don't usually meet with non-humans. Nothing personal, just security. But given the circumstances, what circumstances? Well, you're trying to count us. That's unusual. Most species know how many of their own people exist. The fact that humans are uncountable has some people wondering if we should be more open about why. 3 days later, Vextar found himself in a location that didn't officially exist. The coordinates Jae-sung had given him led to what looked like empty space, but his shuttle's sensors detected a massive space station hidden behind sophisticated stealth technology. Welcome to Haven Station, said Taemin, who had somehow arrived there before Vextar, despite starting from a different star system. I hope you don't mind the secrecy. We're usually more careful about who gets invited here. The station was enormous, easily large enough to house 1 million people, but instead of residential areas, it was filled with coordination centers, communication hubs, and planning facilities that managed human expansion across the galaxy. Sunja, the elderly woman who seemed to be in charge, met them at the docking bay. She moved with the careful precision of someone who had been making important decisions for a very long time. Director Vextar, she said with a polite bow. Thank you for your patience with our census situation. I understand it's been frustrating. Frustrating is one word for it, Vextar replied. Impossible might be more accurate. Sunja smiled. Yes, I imagine it would seem that way. Would you like to see why? She led him through the station to a central control room that took Vextar's breath away. Massive holographic displays showed real-time information about human colonies, exploration missions, terraforming projects, and population movements across the galaxy. Hundreds of technicians monitored communications, coordinated supply shipments, and tracked the progress of expansion efforts. This is the Coordination Center for Human Expansion, Sunja explained. We monitor about 800 established colonies, 300 terraforming projects, and over 1,000 exploration missions. At any given time, the numbers change constantly. New colonies are established every week. Exploration missions discover new habitable worlds every month. Terraforming projects finish and populations spread to new worlds every few months. Nothing stays static. Wu Jin, a middle-aged man with the focused intensity of someone who solved complex problems for a living, joined them at one of the displays. Right now we have colony ships en route to 17 different star systems. They'll arrive over the next 5 years and establish new settlements. Each colony ship carries between 10,000 and 50,000 people. 50,000 people per ship? Vextar felt dizzy. How many colony ships are there? Currently traveling? Maybe 60. In construction? Another 40. In planning stages? Over 100. Yejin, who managed the communications hub, looked up from her console. Director, we just received confirmation that the New Horizon colony in the Tau Ceti system has reached sustainable population levels. They're ready to start their own expansion program. Excellent, Sunja replied. Send them the standard expansion package and let them know they can begin scouting nearby systems. Standard expansion package? Vextar asked. Terraforming equipment, exploration ships, survey data for nearby systems, and coordination protocols. Wu Jin explained. Every colony that reaches a certain size becomes a hub for further expansion. It's more efficient than trying to manage everything from one central location. Minho, who coordinated long-range scouting missions, showed Vextar a different display. We currently have scout ships investigating over 2,000 star systems. Most of them will turn out to be unsuitable for colonization, but we estimate about 200 will be worth settling. 200 new colonies? Over the next 10 years, yes. Plus whatever colonies our current colonies establish independently, plus whatever our exploration ships discover that we weren't expecting to find. Vexatar stared at the displays surrounding him. The scope of human expansion was beyond anything he had imagined. How long has this been going on? Organized expansion like this? About 40 years, Sunja said. But humans have been spreading across the galaxy in smaller ways for much longer. We just formalized the process and made it more efficient. Why? Why spread so far so fast? Sunja was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. Have you ever heard of the concept of redundancy, Director? In engineering, yes. Building backup systems in case the primary systems fail. Humans apply that concept to civilization itself. We spread across the galaxy because we want to make sure humanity survives no matter what happens. Natural disasters, wars, plagues, cosmic catastrophes. None of them can destroy all of humanity if we're scattered across thousands of worlds. But it's more than just survival, Wu Jin added. Humans are curious. We want to see what's out there. We want to try living in different environments. We want to solve the challenges that come with making life work in impossible places. Yejin looked up from her console again. Director, we're getting reports from the Kepler 442b colony. They say their agricultural output is exceeding projections again. They want to know if we can help them find more markets for their surplus food. Put them in touch with the new colonies in the Wolf 359 system, Sunja replied. They should be ready to start importing food by now. She turned back to Vextar. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Vextar stood at the central podium, looking up at representatives from 43 different species, all waiting to hear the results of the human population census that had taken him 3 years to complete. 3 years, and he was about to tell them that he had failed. Honored representatives, he began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. I am here to present the final report on the human population census requested by this council 3 standard years ago. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrian ambassador leaned forward with obvious anticipation. The crystal beings from Arcturus chimed softly in what might have been satisfaction. Everyone expected numbers. Everyone expected the kind of neat, organized data that every other species had provided without difficulty. However, Vextar continued, I must begin with an unprecedented statement. The census cannot be completed, the murmurs stopped. Silence fell over the chamber like a heavy blanket. The human population cannot be accurately counted using standard galactic census procedures. This is not due to any failure of our methods or any lack of cooperation from human authorities. It is due to the fundamental nature of human expansion and settlement patterns. The Antaran representative, a tall being with 4 arms and silver skin, stood up. Director Vextar, every species in the galaxy has successfully completed population censuses. Are you suggesting that humans are somehow exempt from basic mathematical counting? No, honored representative. I am suggesting that humans are unique in ways that make traditional counting impossible. Vextar activated the holographic display system. The chamber filled with 3-dimensional star maps showing the scope of human presence across the galaxy. Gasps echoed from several delegations. When we began this census, human authorities estimated their population at approximately 12.7 billion individuals on their homeworld of Earth. This appeared to be a straightforward starting point. The display zoomed in on the Sol system, showing the extensive human settlements throughout. We discovered that this number represented less than half of the human population in their home system alone. Mars colonies, asteroid mining stations, orbital habitats, and research facilities throughout the system contained an additional 4 billion humans. An error in initial estimates, the Zephyrian ambassador said dismissively. Understandable for a developing species. That was our assumption as well, Vextar agreed. Until we expanded our census to other star systems. The display expanded, showing human colonies across dozens of nearby systems. In each system we investigated, we found human populations far exceeding any official estimates. More concerning, we found human colonies in systems that had never been officially explored or claimed by human governments. He highlighted several star systems in red. These systems contain thriving human colonies with populations in the millions. According to all galactic records, these systems have never been visited by human ships. The chamber erupted in confused conversations. Representatives whispered urgently to their advisors, checking their own databases. Kyung-soo, the human representative to the Galactic Council, stood up from his seat. He was a calm, middle-aged man with the same friendly smile that Vextar had learned to associate with humans who were about to say something that would change everything. Honored Council, Kyung-soo said. May I address some of the confusion Director Vextar's report has raised? The council speaker, an ancient being whose species had founded the galactic community centuries ago, nodded permission. The director's findings are accurate, Kyung-soo continued. Humans have indeed established colonies in systems not reflected in our official records. We have been expanding across the galaxy for over a century, long before our official first contact with the galactic community. Impossible, snapped the Rigelian delegate. Your species barely had chemical rockets a century ago. Chemical rockets were sufficient for generation ships, Kyung-soo replied calmly. Slow, dangerous, requiring tremendous sacrifice from the colonists, but sufficient. Humans have never been good at waiting for better technology before trying something difficult. Vextar stepped forward again. Honored representatives, what I discovered during my investigation fundamentally changes our understanding of human expansion patterns. Humans do not colonize the galaxy the way other species do. The display changed to show comparative expansion patterns. Other species showed neat, organized growth radiating out from their homeworlds in predictable patterns. Most species expand methodically, claiming systems near their established territories, building up infrastructure before moving to the next system. This creates predictable, countable populations. The human expansion pattern looked completely different, scattered dots across vast distances, connected by thin lines representing generation ship routes and exploration paths. Humans expand opportunistically. They send colony ships to any system that might be habitable, regardless of distance or difficulty. They establish research stations on worlds other species consider worthless. They terraform planets other species declare impossible to inhabit. But surely there are limits, protested the Centauri representative. Surely they follow some kind of organized plan. Kyung-soo smiled. Humans follow many organized plans, honored representative. Hundreds of them. Developed by different colonies, different organizations, different exploration groups. We don't expand as a single coordinated effort. We expand as countless individual efforts that add up to something much larger. Vextar nodded. This is the core of the problem. During my investigation, I discovered that human expansion is managed by a distributed network of coordinators who manage approximately 800 established colonies, 300 terraforming projects, and over 1,000 active exploration missions. Managed by whom? Asked the Draconian delegate. What human authority coordinates expansion on this scale? That's just it, Vextar said. No single authority coordinates it. There are coordination networks, planning committees, logistics specialists, but no central government controlling human expansion. Each colony, each exploration ship, each terraforming project operates semi-independently, while staying in communication with the larger network. He showed the council the data he had gathered at Haven Station. Real-time information about colony ships, population movements, new settlements being established. At any given moment, there are dozens of colony ships traveling between star systems. New colonies are being established every month. Existing colonies are splitting into multiple settlements or merging with neighboring colonies. The human population is not static long enough to be accurately counted. The Andromedan representative, whose species had mastered interstellar travel before most others had developed fire, leaned forward. Director Vexistar, are you telling this council that humans have spread across the galaxy faster and more extensively than species with far more advanced technology? Yes, honored representative, but not because of superior technology, because of superior adaptability. Vextar shared some of the specific examples he had encountered. Dongwu's colony thriving on a world declared uninhabitable. Jinho's terraforming project succeeding in decades instead of centuries. Generation ships carrying families across impossible distances with primitive technology. Humans don't wait for ideal conditions, he explained. They don't require perfect worlds or advanced technology. They find ways to make impossible situations work. They turn disadvantages into advantages. They treat challenges as opportunities. But what about resource limitations? Asked the Syrian delegate. What about carrying capacity? What about the basic mathematics of population growth and expansion? Kyung-soo stood again. Honored representative, humans don't think in terms of limitations. We think in terms of solutions, he gestured. And his own holographic display activated, showing detailed information about human resource management across the galaxy. When we run out of room on one world, we terraform another. When we run out of resources in one system, we find new resources in another system. When we encounter a problem that seems impossible to solve, we find a way to turn the problem itself into a solution. The display showed examples. Agricultural colonies producing surplus food for dozens of other settlements. Manufacturing colonies using the waste heat from their industries to warm entire planets. Research stations on hostile worlds discovering resources and techniques that benefited colonies across the galaxy. We are not limited by what exists, Kyung-soo continued. We are empowered by what could exist. Every empty world is a potential garden. Every hostile environment is a research opportunity. Every impossible challenge is a chance to prove that impossible is just another word for not yet achieved. The council speaker raised one ancient hand for silence. The chamber immediately quieted. Director Vextar, the speaker said, what is your official recommendation regarding the human population census? Vextar took a deep breath. Honored speaker, I recommend that the council declare the human census ongoing indefinitely. Attempting to count humans using standard methods is not only impossible, it is unnecessary. Unnecessary. Yes, honored speaker. The purpose of the census is to understand each species' needs, capabilities, and requirements for council planning.